is additional procedure for service under Part 3 for the summons. Okay, because with the summons, you can go to the person's home and leave it with someone who looks like they're over the age of 16. So there are some expanded procedures permitted under Part 3 with respect to things like service and the app and the proof of service and whatnot. But beyond that, everything else comes right back to Part 1. So if you deny the service under, if you say that this section here, section 3.3, does not apply to the procedural components under Part 3, then neither does, I'm just going to scroll down here. Sorry, bear with me. 5.1 under availability for meetings, then neither does meeting by electronic method apply. And if that component doesn't apply, then there's no way you can have a proceedings. Nor does accepting a guilty plea and submission apply. Nor does appearance before justice apply. Nor does a conviction apply. Like all of these things here, they're only spoken here. And if they're not spoken anywhere else, then they can't use it. So they are under law, if then, you know, they're supposed to use what is there. Okay, so if it's only written under Part 1, then you're under Part 1. But if you have Part 3, how do you get back to Part 1? So now I'm going to scroll down, and I should do this a lot faster because I'm in this all the time. So here we are to Part 3, commencement of a proceeding by information. Now, sometimes your provincial offences officer or whoever will give you a summons before they lay in information. Sometimes they'll give you the summons after they lay in information. But either way, Part 3, commencement of proceedings by laying in information, commencement of proceeding by an information. So this is the document that is going to be certified by the office, by the charging officer. And it says, very first paragraph, section 21, subsection 1, in addition to the procedures set out in Part 1, commencing proceeding by filing a certificate, a proceeding in respect of an offense may be commenced by laying in information. You see those golden words there, folks? So if the procedure is not set out under Part 3, you go back to Part 1 and you add it in addition to Part 3 in order to commence the fulfill the procedural components of commencing the proceedings. So section 21, in addition to Part 1, binds Part 3 reflectively to Part 1. So Part 1 is bound to Part 3, Part 3 is bound to Part 1 because they all work in harmony with each other. They are applied to be interchangeable with each other. They are in addition, because in law, redundancy is not permitted. They're not allowed to write the same rule over and over and over again in the same act. They can only put it in one spot, and then they have to reference you back to that rule. So the reason why all these procedures are under Part 1 is to continuously repeat them under Part 3 would become redundant, and then it would become difficult and confusing to understand the law. Not that they're not trying to do it. So now that you understand a few things here, and I'm going to keep this on 20, I'm going to keep this here because I want to come back to it. Let's go back to the ticket. And I'm going to stop my share and make sure that I'm actually sharing, because I keep flipping back and forth and then I realize, no, I'm flipping, you guys. So there is the ticket. And I've got several tickets that I've prepared for today. The first one is just a simple speeding ticket. And the simple speeding ticket here, I've redacted obviously private information, but you will have the offense notice, which has been partially redacted. You'll have the name of the officer. You will have the date of the alleged occurrence of the offense, which was May 18th, 2013 at or around 4:10 p.m. These are components. Now, if they make a slight error, that is considered that type of a component. If they make a slight error here, if it can potentially be ratified in by the officer, corrected, and not be considered a non-fatal error. If they make a spelling mistake in your name, if they make a small mistake in your address, again, these are not necessarily considered non-fatal errors. And a lot of people, they automatically say, oh, the cop made a mistake. No, it's not necessarily a mistake. And there are sections, and I'm not going to pull them up right now, but there are sections in the Provincial Offences Act that allows some nominal correction when a mistake is made. So in this, it then asks for the name of the alleged accused, okay, which I've redacted, and then asks, and you have to put in the address of the alleged accused. And I can't even highlight. Oh yeah, maybe I can. And then here you would put in the alleged accused driver's license, and then their birthday goes below it. And then below that, it gives a description of the nature of what you did. Okay, so sorry. First, it gives you a location. So these are all essential elements. Essential elements being the what is required for an offense to have occurred. So you have to have a when did it occur? Well, the when is up here, and that was on this date at approximately this time. Then you have to have who is the alleged accused. That comes next. Okay, and all the identification that shows and identifies the alleged accused would go into that section. Then you have to have where the alleged offense occurred. Well, in this case, I didn't redact this information. It was on Highway 11 at I don't know, something road. Long story short, folks, it was just before the off ramp in Bala. Not Bala, Berks Falls. It was just south of Berks Falls, heading on the southbound lane. So that's where the alleged offense occurred. And then the next would be what did I do? What did the person do? Okay, it's a brief description of the nature of the offense. The nature of the offense was speeding 120 kilometers in a posted 100-kilometer zone. It is very possible the person who received this ticket actually was told that she was doing 140. That's another story for another day.
We won't use any names. Hey, Amanda, can you take a quick question?
Yes.
So what would be an example of a fatal error, Jadasana is asking, on a ticket? So
I'm going to get to the fatal error,
okay.
Because I'm going to go back to that timeline of service, and that's when I'm probably going to go into my little story of what's going on, because I'm working on what I believe is to be a fatal error. It's still before the courts.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay. So then there's a brief description, as I mentioned, which in this case is speeding 120 kilometers an hour in a posted 100-kilometer-hour zone. And then you have what rule did it break? Contrary to the Highway Traffic Act 128. Okay, now I'm going to switch screens again, and when I do, I'm gonna be able to see my ticket that I had up on the screen, but you're only going to be able to see the Highway Traffic Act. So you need the information on the Highway Traffic Act. Back to here we are, Highway Traffic Act. We've got versions, we've got regulations, and we've got revoked and spent regulations. We're going to get into those a little bit more in detail later. Let's just stick at the moment with the regulations. So the first thing that matters here is that was the date of the offense. The date of the offense was April the 18th, 2013. So going back to versions, you can see there's all these versions plus 112 more versions. I'm going to click on that, and now I have to do the year 2013, and right here from December 31st, 2012 to June 30th, 2014. I'm going to click on that because this is the version of the ticket that applies. It's the rule on the day the alleged offense occurred that is the rule that applies. So even if they revoke this rule years later, it doesn't change the fact that on that particular day it was in effect, and on that particular day I was accused of breaking it. So just to double check, It was April the 18th, 2013. And right here, it says historical version for the period December 31st, 2012 to June 30th, 2014. So my offense date falls within that historical version. This is the Highway Traffic Act that applies. The next thing on it is that it says that I was speeding at 120 kilometers an hour, posted at 100 kilometers zone, contrary to the Highway Traffic Act. So here I am, Highway Traffic Act, section 128. So I'm just scrolling down, and with the interactive version, I don't have to, I can just click on that and it'll take me right there. So looking at that, section 28, every person having possession of an accessible, really? Oh, I switched screens. I'm sorry, folks. Highway Traffic Act, parking permits. I don't know why that says. Okay, that's really interesting. Somehow I'm gonna have to redo this. Highway Traffic Act, because it says Highway Traffic Act, but it looks like okay, so going back, hopefully you guys can see that screen. Going back again, just December the 13th. There we go. So to the historical version, and that's what I hit the wrong number. It's 128. So going to 128, there we go. No person shall drive a motor vehicle at a rate of speed greater than A, 50 kilometers per hour on a highway within a local municipality or within a built-up area, despite clause A, 80 kilometers per hour on a highway not within a built-up area. And it gives all the different breakdowns. Now this guy, he simply wrote section 128. So he actually, that ticket is a failure. That ticket is actually a failure. And I never really looked at the ticket before, but that ticket, now that I'm looking at
Invoke.
is a failure because
They
he
know
said,
they just didn't want to wait outside.
Okay, yep. I just gotta finish with this and
Well, for sure, yeah.
Hey, sorry, I guess I'll just mute people that, sorry about that.
yeah, no problem. Okay, so that ticket, I would have to say that that is potentially fatal error, because to tell me that no person shall drive a motor vehicle at a rate of speed greater than, well, which is it? A, B, C, D, E, or F? I don't know which rule was broken. He actually did not. In this case, it should have been the maximum rate of speed posted on a highway or portion of highway pursuant to section 128.0.1. That's what he should have wrote. To my understanding. Having said that, when you take a look under this section, the part that's very interesting is the reality that built write-ins, we're still in 128. Okay, so there's section 128. Then we have subsections 1.1, 2, 3, goes on and on and on. And I'm going to keep going down until we get to, here we go, 14. There you go, folks. Built right in to the offense that was allegedly committed is the penalty. It's clearly laid out. So there's your penalty built in to the offense. That's the way it's supposed to be written. Okay, not everything is written that way, and it's a whole lot of are you kidding me? But here's the thing. I mean, when I fought this ticket, I fought it not looking at the rules. There's a lot of other things that I used to fight this ticket, and I have my own way of doing things. And ultimately, I did get the ticket removed. Perhaps they did make a fatal error trying to give me an excuse, try to give me something so they could get rid of it. Ultimately, they just withdrew the ticket because of the way I argued it. I'm certain of that. But now that I'm looking at this ticket with more informed eyes, because this is from 2013 and that's 2022, my education's gotten a lot better. There's a lot more I know now that I didn't know then.